Welcome back, guys. We are here tinkering on the 308 once again, and today we are going to talk wheels, which, if you ask me, is probably the most important part of any build. They make or break every car, and I've spent months now trying to figure out exactly what's going to go on this thing, and I finally figured it out. I officially bought wheels for the 308. I don't know if I'm going to show them to you guys just yet, but it's official, it's happening. I'm excited about my decision, but getting to this point took a lot of consideration. I thought I had made up my mind and I had to wipe the slate completely clean, but I'm gonna show you guys why today. I've got two different sets of mock-up wheels. I've got a set of 18-inch TE37s and my 17-inch set of Centerlock Ronals. We're gonna put both of them on the car and talk about the way that they fit, the overall kind of packaging constraints, and kind of eventually show you guys where I have landed, and you guys can do some detective work and see if you can figure out what's actually going on the car. But either way, I think this is gonna be a fun episode. We've got lots of wheels to put on this thing. It should look pretty sweet, and hopefully you'll learn something while we're at it. Let's dive in. So we've got three different sets of wheels to test fit on the 308 today. The first set is a set of Centerlock Ronals, the second is Khalil's set of 18-inch TE37s, and the third set is the set of 18 by 13 and 18 by 14.5 BBS E19 motorsport wheels that I first showed off when we test fit the body kit. So we'll go back to that footage to begin with and showcase how these things fit. It's at least useful to show just how wide of a wheel can fit under these flares, even though we're not going to run anything close to this dimension. A ton of you guys commented on the body kit video saying that you wanted to see these wheels on the car as one of the final results, and I can't deny that they do look amazing, but as I mentioned at the time, it's not really the look that I'm after. It's a bit too European in flavor, and since this build is so Japanese inspired, I want something that's one piece in Japanese, or at least that was the original plan. So let me show you guys a render that we started this build out with. Andrew Ritter drew this up for me before I even bought the car. That's how far back the plan for this build goes. It features the wide bodywork on the car and the RS Future Aero package that'll eventually make its way onto it. And as you can see, I was thinking TE37s quite some time ago. However, I'm gonna get this out of the way now. It's not the wheel I've decided to run on the car. On the other hand, it doesn't mean I don't want to see them on the car, and we can still learn a lot from them. In fact, it's having these wheels on hand that told me why I didn't want to run TE37s to begin with. Unsurprisingly, the TE37s look incredible on the car, and they definitely fit the style that I was after. If you can imagine it with all of the aero bits that I showed in the render earlier, it really starts to take shape and looks like a time attack car, and this definitely proves the theory that TE37s look good on pretty much everything. I can't say that it's the most original wheel choice out there either, but the overall style and the look of this setup can't be denied. However, there is one problem at hand that I'm assuming you guys have probably noticed, and it's that these things are absolutely massive on the car. This set measures out to 18 by 10.5, and I think that the 18-inch diameter is just too big for this thing. I balanced them up on top of some wood to get the ride height relatively correct, even though the car is floating up in the air, and you can see just how much wheel and tire is hanging down below the body of the car. This thing would have a pretty high ride height, and I think once all said and done, it really would look pretty odd going down the road. It's also not ideal for an aerodynamic setup either. This side view shows just how big that 18-inch diameter is, and while it fills the wheel wells nicely, I think they're just a bit too large. That brings us to my 17-inch Ronals, which measure out to 17 by 8.5, and while they aren't even close to the right style for the car, they'll at least help us get an understanding of some sizing. And for the curious, this set is off of an E28 Group A tribute car that I built a few years ago. So let's see them on the 308. Honestly, once I put these on the car, I kind of fell in love with them. They look pretty cool, they're very unique, and they're very era correct. It's not something I expected to like, but as mentioned, it's definitely not the look we're going for. This doesn't say time attack car whatsoever. But I can say that the 17-inch sizing fits a lot better on the car, and I'm much happier with it, so this is what we're going to go with. Now, some of you guys might ask why not run 17-inch TE37s in this case, and the answer is pretty simple. The widest of any Model TE in 17-inch is just 10.5 inches, and that's definitely not wide enough for our tire goals. Ideally, what I think we'll aim for is a 17 by 10.5 or 11-inch front wrapped in a 275, and a 17 by 12-inch rear so that we can run a 315. So whether you like 17s or 18s, and I'd love for you guys to leave a comment and let me know which one you prefer out of curiosity, but whatever side of the fence you're on, there's still a problem at hand. It's the fact that this body kit combined with this car requires an extremely low offset wheel, and I can sort of illustrate that with what I have here, and it's something that we need to fix. We need to change that, or otherwise we're gonna have a terrible scrub radius. It's gonna be really hard on the wheel bearings and introduce a handful of other problems that we just don't want to deal with. So I'm gonna stick the camera under the car and see if I can't at least try to explain one of the battles that I've been facing and trying to figure out what to do for wheels in this car. I'm sure most of you guys have noticed that with how I have the wheels propped up, they sit nice and flush with the fenders of the car. And for reference, these wheels measure out to 17 by 8.5, and they have about a plus 20 offset. But they do have a huge back pad, which is why they have such small lips. So if we look behind the wheel, you'll notice that the hub of the wheel is quite far off of the hub of the Ferrari. There's probably 3 or 4 inches there, which would mean in order for them to fit, we'd actually have to add another 3 or 4 inches of lip. So for the sake of discussion, let me push the wheel against the hub and show you how it would actually fit. As you can see, the wheel is quite sunken in the fender, and so we'd need that extra lip in order to make this actually fit the way we want it to. But that's not really a good thing for the scrub radius of the car. We'd like to keep the offset relatively neutral, or high in our case, so that we have good driving dynamics. The problem is even worse at the back of the car, where there's probably 6 or more inches between the hub of the wheel and the hub of the car. And to make this up with this width of a wheel, we would need an offset of negative 106. You can see here that this wheel is very, very sunk, and it's just not an option. Admittedly, it looks sweet with some 8 or more inches of lip, but that's not really the look I'm after, nor is it good for the wheel bearings of the car. But it's worth remembering as you look at this that there's still nearly 9 inches of wheel underneath this thing, so we clearly have a bunch of room to play with and a lot of room for some serious rubber back here. Now we'll probably have more than one episode based solely on suspension geometry and analyzing all of the changes that we're going to make and highlighting how those are going to affect the car and showcasing how the geometry will work before we actually fabricate or have parts machined. There's a lot of info to unpack there, and we can't fit it all in it right now, and most of it's irrelevant to what we're discussing. But the short version of what we're talking about today and the cure that we're gonna have for this problem is by lengthening those control arms and pushing them to the outside of the car, which will effectively move the hub and the main upright or the spindle towards the outside of the car as well. And that's gonna widen our track width, which will be great for handling. It's going to fix the front scrub radius. It will be better for the wheel bearings, and we'll get improved geometry out of it as well. So this is gonna be a net positive for everything, and I'm pretty excited to see how it will affect the car in the end. But the most important part at the moment is the fact that it will fix this really weird wheel problem, which otherwise would mean we'd need to run, 12-inch wide, negative 100 and something offset wheels. That's not gonna work. We're not gonna do that. So we know what diameter and what widths we want, and we know we have some fixes to make, but let's talk center locks. There's 2 different ways to attach a center lock wheel to a car, and I have an example of each right here on the workbench. On the right is a complete hub from an old BMW, but on the left, the smaller of the two, is a 1-to-1 copy of a Group A E28 Centerlock hub adapter. This one bolts to your hub and essentially adapts your car to allow for center locks, while the complete replacement hub, the bigger of the two, is exactly what it sounds like. It eliminates the ability to bolt a normal wheel on and instead makes your car center lock only. And this is really the correct way to do it, but it's also a lot more complicated to pull off. It requires significantly more machining and is a much more custom application. Center locks are admittedly about as race car as it gets, and it allows for some really unique wheel options, but I don't think they're quite the right goal for the Ferrari. Center lock wheels come with a whole slew of challenges, and while I've chosen a wheel already, it's not too late to change again. That's happened on pretty much every build I've ever done. But I don't think I'm gonna do something like this. I think this adds too much complexity for how hard I wanna use the car, and I like to keep things as simple as possible, and pit stop times aren't really relevant in this sport, so I might as well keep it really simple and elegant. So what wheels did I actually get for the car? Well, like I said, I'm not gonna show you guys yet. I wanna wait till the wheel build is finished, and that's gonna be a ways out, but part of the fun is having something to unveil for you guys. It'll be a lot less fun to just show you these haggard old wheels that are sitting here on the floor. But now you have some info to play with. I've told you guys I want something Japanese on the car, as the car is very Japanese inspired and it's a time attack build. And I've already made it obvious that they're 3-piece, so get to guessing. Maybe you'll figure it out, maybe you won't. I don't know. I'm pretty excited about it though. It's gonna be pretty sweet. It's gonna make this car even crazier than it already is. We just gotta get there. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to leave a like. That stuff helps the algorithm a ton, helps my channel grow. I appreciate all of it. I'll catch you on the next episode on Thursday. See you then.